All right, get ready for the deep dive. We're going to unlock some serious saving secrets today. We're diving deep into how to live cheaply. It's a popular WikiHow article.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's basically a crowdsourced guide to frugal living. And what's so cool about this is that it's packed with tips and tricks from real people. People who've actually figured out how to make their money stretch further. We're talking everything from like simple swaps to like these surprising strategies, that could like revolutionize your budget.
Wow, that's amazing. What I find fascinating about this kind of collaborative guide is that it just reveals the incredible ingenuity people have when it comes to saving money. It's like a collective treasure map. It's leading to a more affordable lifestyle.
I love that, a treasure map. And when you think about it, living cheaply, it isn't just about pinching pennies. It's about resourcefulness and creativity. So are you ready to kind of embark on this frugal living adventure with us?
Absolutely. Let's uncover those hidden gems of financial wisdom.
Okay, let's start with like the foundation of any good budget food. The WikiHow article, it kicks off with this section called Eating for Less. And right away, it busts a myth that's probably costing you a fortune. Cooking from scratch is actually cheaper than those pre-made meals marketed as convenient. I have to admit, I've fallen into that trap myself. Thinking those ready-to-eat meals were like saving me time and money.
Yeah, I think that's a really common misconception. Like those pre-made meals might seem like a quick fix, but when you break down the cost per serving, they're often significantly more expensive than preparing a meal from scratch. Plus, you're paying for packaging, processing, and all those extra additives that you wouldn't normally add if you were cooking at home.
That's a great point about the hidden costs. So how could we break free from the convenience trap and start saving on food?
Well, the article really emphasizes the importance of meal planning. It might sound tedious, but trust me, it's a game changer. Imagine this. You sit down once a week. You plan out your meals for the entire week. You create a shopping list based on those meals. And you stick to that lid like it's a treasure map leading to savings.
So it's about having a strategy, a roadmap for your grocery shopping. That way, you're not like wandering the aisles aimlessly, tempted by impulse buys.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The article introduces this concept of meal extenders. Think of them as budget superheroes that stretch your meals further without sacrificing flavor or nutrition.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about these meal expenders.
Okay, so think about versatile ingredients like rice, lentils, beans, potatoes, or even oats. These powerhouses can bulk up soups, stews, salads, and casseroles. It just makes your meals go further.
For example, instead of just having like a simple chicken breast, you could add some lentils and veggies and like create a hearty and filling stew that could easily last for a couple of meals.
Exactly. And think about the savings. You're essentially getting more bang for your buck by stretching those pricier ingredients with budget-friendly options.
That's a great tip, especially for those of us who are trying to, stretch our grocery budget. The article also suggests something else that might surprise some people. Cutting down on meat. It points out that vegetarian diets can actually be more economical. I know some people might be hesitant about like giving up meat entirely, but even reducing your meat consumption, like incorporating a few meatless meals each week, can make a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely worth considering, both from a financial and an environmental perspective. Plant-based proteins like beans, lentils, tofu, and tempeh are generally less expensive than meat, and they offer a range of nutritional benefits.
So we're cooking from scratch. We're meal planning like pros, and maybe even dabbling in meatless Mondays. What other food-saving secrets does the WikiHow article have in store for us?
Well, it suggests something that might seem obvious but often gets overlooked: buying in bulk. Think about those pantry staples that you use regularly: pasta, rice, beans, canned goods, spices. Buying these in bulk can save you a significant amount of money in the long run.
Okay, but what if you don't have a ton of storage space? Or like you're worried about food going to waste?
That's a valid concern, especially for those living in smaller spaces. But the article offers some clever workarounds. It suggests splitting bulk purchases with friends or family members. So you're essentially getting a wholesale price without having to store a massive quantity yourself.
That's a great idea. It's like having a mini food co-op with your friends, which actually ties into another suggestion in the article: starting a food co-op with your neighbors.
That's a brilliant way to leverage community and collective buying power. You can pool your resources, buy in bulk directly from suppliers, and potentially get even better prices than you would at a wholesale store. Plus, it fosters a sense of community and shared purpose.
I love that idea of turning frugal living into a social activity. It's like a modern-day version of those old-fashioned barn raisings. But instead of building a barn, you're building a more affordable and sustainable food system.
Exactly. And speaking of sustainability, the article touches on a topic that's close to my heart: growing your own food. Now, I know not everyone has a sprawling backyard or the time to become a full-fledged farmer, but even a small herb garden on a windowsill or a few tomato plants in containers can make a difference.
It's about connecting with the source of our food, even on a small scale. Plus, there's nothing quite like the taste of fresh herbs or vegetables straight from your own garden.
And it can be incredibly empowering. It's a way to reclaim control over your food supply, reduce your reliance on grocery stores, and enjoy the satisfaction of nurturing something from seed to harvest.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in the food department: cooking from scratch, meal planning, meal extenders, buying in bulk, food co-ops, even growing our own food. But before we move on to other areas of frugal living, the article addresses something really important: the fact that sometimes, even with the best budgeting tips, people might need a little extra help.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that everyone deserves access to nutritious food, regardless of their financial situation.
Absolutely. And the article encourages people to seek out resources, like food banks or nutrition assistance programs if needed, emphasizing that there's no shame in asking for support.
It's a reminder that we're all in this together, and sometimes we need to rely on community resources to help us navigate challenging times.
Okay, so we've tackled the first major expense category, food. Next up, we're moving on to another big one: housing. And just like with food, the WikiHow article has some pretty surprising tips for keeping those housing costs down. Are you ready to explore some alternative living arrangements? And maybe even challenge some conventional wisdom?
I'm always up for a challenge, especially when it comes to finding creative solutions to those big-ticket expenses. Let's see what unconventional wisdom the WikiHow community has to offer. So you ready to tackle housing costs? Let's dive into those WikiHow tips.
You bet. The first suggestion might seem like a big leap, but it could lead to huge savings. Moving to a cheaper neighborhood. I know that's not always feasible, especially if you're tied to like a job or school district, but the article makes a good point. Even a slightly less trendy neighborhood could mean like significantly lower rent or mortgage payments.
Yeah, it's about expanding your horizons and challenging those assumptions about where you need to live. You might be surprised at the hidden gems you can find just a little further out from the city center or in like a less popular neighborhood.
That makes sense. Sometimes we get so focused on a particular area that we overlook other possibilities. It's like going to a concert and only looking at the stage. What might be like amazing things happening in the crowd too.
Exactly. And for those who aren't ready for a full-blown move, the article recommends exploring websites like Zillow or Trulia just to research rental prices in your current area. You might be surprised to find that similar apartments are going for significantly different prices, depending on the building, or even like the floor you're on.
That's a great tip. It's like doing a little market research before you go shopping for a car. You want to make sure you're getting the best deal possible. And speaking of getting a good deal, the article suggests something that a lot of people might not think of: negotiating with your current landlord. I always thought rent prices were set in stone, but apparently there's sometimes room for negotiation.
It's definitely worth a try, especially if you have a good rental history and you're a reliable tenant. The article points out that landlords often prefer stability, so they might be willing to offer a slightly lower rent if you're willing to sign a longer lease.
So it's about building a good relationship with your landlord and approaching the conversation with a win-win mindset. And speaking of shared spaces, the article suggests another classic cost-cutting strategy: finding roommates. I've had some amazing experiences living with roommates. And let's be honest, splitting rent and utilities can make a huge difference in your budget.
Beyond the financial benefits, there's also the social aspect. Living with roommates can be a great way to meet new people, share experiences, and build a sense of community.
And it doesn't have to be a long-term commitment. Even finding a roommate for a few months could help you bridge a financial gap or save up for a bigger goal.
Absolutely. It's about being flexible and open to different living arrangements that can support your financial goals.
Okay, so we've talked about moving to a cheaper neighborhood, negotiating with your landlord, and finding roommates. What about those of us who are dreaming of owning our own homes someday? Does the WikiHow article offer any tips for navigating the often daunting world of homeownership?
It definitely does. It suggests exploring some unconventional options that could make homeownership more attainable, like looking into bank-owned properties. These are properties that have been foreclosed on and are being sold by the bank, often at a lower price than traditional livings.
Though that sounds like a potential bargain, but I imagine there might be some challenges too.
Of course, bank-owned properties sometimes require some renovations, so you need to factor those costs into your budget. But for those who are handy or willing to put in a little sweat equity, it could be a fantastic way to get into the housing market at a more affordable price.
It's like flipping a house, but on a smaller scale, and hopefully with less drama. The article also suggests considering refinancing your mortgage. If you already own a home, I have to admit I don't fully understand how refinancing works, but it sounds like it could potentially save you money.
Refinancing essentially means replacing your existing mortgage with a new one, often at a lower interest rate. This can lower your monthly payments, which can free up cash flow. For other expenses or savings goals,
So it's like hitting the reset button on your mortgage and potentially getting a better deal?
exactly, but as with any financial decision, it's important to do your research and consult with a financial advisor to see if refinancing makes sense for your specific situation.
That's such important advice. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement of potentially saving money without fully understanding the implications. And just like the section on food, the housing section reminds us that sometimes people need a little extra help finding safe and affordable housing.
Absolutely. The article encourages those who are struggling to seek out resources like government housing assistance programs or nonprofit organizations that specialize in affordable housing. It's a reminder that there's no shame in asking for help, and there are often resources available that can make a big difference.
That's such an important message. Okay, we've covered food and housing, two of the biggest expenses most people face. Now let's zap those energy bills. The WikiHow article dives into the world of saving on utilities. It starts with something that I think a lot of people are already doing: ditching cable.
It's a classic cost-cutting move that has become even more relevant with the rise of streaming services. Why pay for hundreds of channels you never watch when you can customate your entertainment experience with platforms like Netflix, Hulu, or Disney Plus?
Exactly. And for those sports fanatics who might be hesitant to cut the cord, there are league-specific streaming options, like NBA League Pass or MLB TV, that allow you to follow your favorite teams without the hefty price tag of a cable package.
It's about taking control of your entertainment choices and only paying for what you actually watch.
So we've liberated ourselves from cable's clutches and embraced the world of streaming. What other energy-saving secrets does the WikiHow community have up their sleeves?
Well, the article suggests something that might not sound as glamorous as a Netflix binge, but it can have a significant impact on your heating and cooling costs: insulation.
Okay, I'll admit, insulation isn't exactly the most exciting topic, but I know it's important. Tell me more about how we can use insulation to save money.
Think of insulation as like a cozy blanket for your home, keeping the warm air in during the winter and the cool air in during the summer. The article highlights both simple DIY solutions and more long-term investments. For those on a tight budget, it suggests hanging thick curtains, caulking gaps around windows and doors, and even placing draft stoppers at the base of doors. These are all low-cost ways to prevent those precious BTUs from escaping your home.
It's like giving your house a warm hug, and your wallet will definitely thank you for it.
Exactly. And for those who are ready to take the next step, the article recommends considering more permanent insulation solutions, like adding insulation to your attic or walls. It might require a bigger upfront investment, but the long-term savings on your energy bills can be significant.
It's like investing in a warm coat that will keep you comfortable for years to come.
Exactly. And speaking of long-term investments, the article suggests upgrading to energy-efficient appliances. I know those shiny new appliances can be tempting, but are they really worth the investment from a cost-saving perspective?
That's a great question. What does the article say?
It emphasizes that while energy-efficient appliances might have a higher initial price tag, they often pay for themselves over time through reduced energy consumption and lower utility bills. Plus, you're reducing your carbon footprint, which is good for the planet.
It's about thinking beyond the upfront cost and considering the long-term benefits. It's like planting a seed that will grow into a money-saving tree.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of energy consumption, the article encourages us to take a closer look at our electronic habits. How often do we leave lights on in empty rooms, keep the TV on in the background, or charge our devices even when they're already fully charged?
Ooh, those are good points. It's so easy to fall into those energy-wasting habits without even realizing it. What are some strategies for breaking those habits?
The article suggests making a conscious effort to be more mindful of our energy use. Turn off lights when you leave a room, unplug devices when you're not using them, and try to use natural light whenever possible.
It's like a mini energy audit for your everyday life.
Exactly. Small changes can add up to big savings. And speaking of big changes, the article throws in an idea that might sound a little out there for some people: switching your energy source entirely.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this energy switcheroo.
The article suggests exploring alternative energy sources, like solar panels, wind turbines, or even geothermal heat pumps.
Now, those sound like some serious investments.
They can be, but the article acknowledges that while the upfront costs can be significant, there are often government incentives, tax credits, and financing options available to make these alternative energy sources more accessible. Plus, you could potentially even sell excess energy back to the grid, essentially turning your home into a mini power plant.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. It's like turning frugality into a superpower. But realistically, I think solar panels are probably the most accessible option for most homeowners. What are some things to consider if you're thinking about going solar?
The article recommends doing your research and getting quotes from reputable solar installers. It's important to factor in the size of your home, your energy needs, and the amount of sunlight your roof receives to determine if solar panels are a good fit for you.
That makes sense. And before we wrap up this electrifying discussion on energy savings, the article mentions one more quick and easy tip. Switching energy providers. I never even realized that was an option.
It's not available in every area, but in deregulated energy markets, you can often choose from multiple energy suppliers, potentially finding a lower rate, or a plan that better suits your needs.
It's like comparison shopping for your electricity.
Exactly. It's always worth checking to see if you could be getting a better deal.
Okay, we've covered food, housing, and bills, those big three expense categories that often take up a huge chunk of our budgets. But living cheaply doesn't mean living a life devoid of joy and fun. Are you ready to dive into the world of affordable entertainment and discover how to have a blast without breaking the bank?
Absolutely. Let's unlock those frugal fun secrets and discover how to live a rich life on a budget.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've explored like a ton of practical tips for saving on those like big expenses like food, housing, and utilities. But now it's time for like the fun stuff, because living cheaply shouldn't feel like a sacrifice, right?
Absolutely. It's all about finding those hidden gems of affordable entertainment and creating a life that's rich in experiences, not just stuff.
Exactly. So where does the Mickey Howell article suggest we start our quest for frugal fun?
It encourages us to tap into like the wealth of free or low-cost resources right in our own communities. Think about local parks, libraries, museums, and community centers. They often host events, classes, workshops, and even concerts that are either free or significantly cheaper than commercial entertainment options.
I love that idea of rediscovering our own neighborhoods and finding those like hidden treasures. It's like being a tourist in your own city.
Exactly. And speaking of rediscovering classic forms of entertainment, the article gives a shout out to board games.
Oh, I'm all about board game nights. It's such a fun and affordable way to connect with friends and family.
Absolutely. And there are so many options to choose from, whether you're into strategy games, word games, or party games. Plus, you can often find used board games at thrift stores or online marketplaces for a fraction of the price of new ones.
That's a great tip. It's like giving those pre-loved games a new life. And for those who enjoy a good laugh, the article suggests checking out free online games, like Cards Against Humanity.
It's a great example of how technology can actually facilitate frugal fun. There are tons of free or low-cost games available online that can provide hours of entertainment.
Okay, so we've explored community resources, board games, and online games. What about those of us who crave a little more adventure? Does the WikiHow article offer any tips for budget-friendly travel?
It does. It suggests exploring alternative accommodation options, like hostels, Airbnb rentals, or even camping.
I've heard great things about hostels. They seem like a fantastic way to meet people from all over the world and experience a different culture.
Exactly, and they're often significantly cheaper than traditional hotels.
And for those who prefer a little more privacy, Airbnb could be a fantastic option, especially if you're traveling with a group or family.
And for those who love the outdoors, camping can be an incredibly affordable and adventurous way to travel.
I've always wanted to go a cross-country road trip and camp in national parks. It seems like such a liberating and budget-friendly way to experience the beauty of nature.
It's definitely an adventure worth considering. The article also emphasizes the importance of planning in advance and traveling during the off-season, when flights and accommodations are typically less expensive.
That's a great point about being strategic with your timing. It's like getting a discount on your adventure. And speaking of discounts, what about all those other expenses that can creep up on us, like personal care items, clothing, and transportation? Does the WikiHow article offer any tips for saving in those areas?
It does. It suggests exploring DIY beauty treatments, using natural ingredients like honey, avocado, or oatmeal to create homemade face masks or hair treatments.
It's like turning your kitchen into a spa.
Exactly. And for those who prefer professional services, the article recommends checking out beauty schools, where students offer services at discounted rates under the supervision of experienced instructors.
That's a win-win. You get a more affordable service, and the students gain valuable experience.
Absolutely. And for clothing, the article encourages exploring thrift stores, consignment shops, and online marketplaces like Poshmark or ThredUp.
I love thrifting. It's like a treasure hunt, and you never know what unique and affordable finds you might uncover.
Exactly. And for transportation, the article suggests exploring carpooling options, using public transportation whenever possible, and even considering biking or walking for shorter distances.
Those are all great suggestions. Not only do they save money, but they're also more environmentally friendly.
And speaking of being mindful of our impact on the environment, the article highlights the intersection of frugality and sustainability.
That's such an important connection. It's not just about saving money. It's about making choices that are good for the planet, too.
Exactly. The article encourages us to think about our consumption habits and choose eco-friendly options whenever possible, whether it's buying products with minimal packaging, using reusable shopping bags, or composting food scraps.
It's about recognizing that small changes can make a big difference. And, what strikes me about all these tips is that they're not just about like scrimping and saving. They're about being resourceful, creative, and mindful. It's like a whole different way of approaching life.
Absolutely. It's about shifting our mindset from a scarcity mentality to an abundance mentality.
I love that. It's about recognizing that we have the power to create a life that is both affordable and fulfilling. A life that is rich in experiences and meaningful connections, not just material possessions.
Exactly. It's about aligning our spending with our values and creating a life that reflects our true priorities.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything. We've explored a ton of amazing tips and strategies. From the WikiHow article, How to Live Cheaply, from cooking from scratch to finding affordable entertainment, to embracing a more sustainable lifestyle.
We've debunked myths, challenged conventional wisdom, and hopefully inspired you to embark on your own frugal living adventure.
I hope so too. And as you embark on this journey, remember that frugal living is not about deprivation or sacrifice. It's about empowerment and freedom.
It's about taking control of your finances, making conscious choices, and creating a life that is both affordable and deeply fulfilling.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of cheap living. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling inspired to create a life that is both financially secure and rich in experiences.
And remember, the journey to financial well-being is an ongoing one. Keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep striving to create a life that reflects your values and your dreams.
Until next time, happy saving.